Hi, everyone. My name's Richard Smith. Now, I'm going to be telling you a story today. It's going to involve a couple of people, a faraway land, and some funny looking animals. So I hope you're ready for that. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen because I've got some really nice pictures to show you. So if I share that, I'm pretty sure you can see my little slideshow. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about pollution, climate, and penguins. That's quite a mix, and some of you may not know what pollution and climate is, but hopefully by the end of it, you will. So, my name is Richard Smith, and I work with school energy efficiency. But what do I do? Okay, let's try and investigate. So, I go into schools a lot, and I do this sort of thing I'm doing now. I run workshops with guys to learn things together, but I like to look to see how warm your school is, yeah, and how cold it gets as well. I'm interested in that, and I'm sort of interested in how you use electricity in your school. So think of all the things around you that use electricity right now. Maybe a computer, or maybe a screen that you're looking at that your teacher's presenting on. And also, I'm interested in lights. How do you use your lights in your school? So there's a light bulb there. We've got more modern ones now, LED ones, don't we? And finally, I like to see how we use daylight. So how are your windows? Do they work well? Do they let enough light into your classroom? So I'm interested in all of these things. And I've got this really cool camera called a thermal camera. And it takes lovely pictures like this. So that's a picture of the outside of a building only just last week. And you can see the sort of heat escaping through the windows. And I help the schools understand, what they can do about these sort of things. And actually, part of the answer is what you guys can do about this. So hopefully you're going to enjoy this little story and work out what you can do to actually make your school a better place. Okay, I promise this is the place we're going to end up. It's a place called Antarctica. Now, how many of you know where that is? I bet there's quite a few of you, yeah. I mean, some of you year twos, just like my boy who's 7 and in year 2, he's just been doing a project about continents. And he's found out that Antarctica is right at the bottom of the planet. And there's some funny looking animals like these penguins who live there. But that's where we're going to be heading, okay? Right, my story involves this person. This is James. He's my friend. He's also a teacher, and he's actually probably teaching right now. But it also involves this guy here. Now, he looks a little older, and his face is a bit more craggy, and his name's Robert. Now, can you think what he might do for a living? Is he a skier? Is he a mountain climber? Well, he's got OBE after his name, which means he got an award from the Queen. So he must have done something really important. So actually, he's an explorer. So you may have learnt in history about all the different types of explorer from all countries in the world who've gone and investigated our planet and found out wonderful things. Well, this guy, well, he's not that much older than me, but he's done quite a lot of exploring, and we're going to find out what. Okay, so James met him once in Chesterfield, not far from Sheffield, and they were in a boring meeting. And James really wanted to talk to him about what he was doing as an explorer and what we did. But the thing is, the meeting ended and Robert had to go quickly. But he said this to him. He said, I know this is very short notice, James, but if you can join us, why not try? We depart on March the 8th for the Antarctic. Now, that was only 2 weeks away. And James was going, I don't know. And he rang me up, he rang me on the phone. He said, look, Richard, this happened. I've been invited to go to Antarctica. Should I go? And I said, James, should you go? How many people are going to invite you to Antarctica? It isn't going to happen again, is it? Of course you should go. Now, we had to raise a bit of money, which we did from a fantastic school and a lovely renewable energy business. And James was able to go. And I'm going to pick up his story later on because I want to talk about Robert first. What did he explore? Well, this is the place he explored, Antarctica, what we've been talking about. Now, there is a picture of Antarctica. Now, it doesn't look very big, does it? Now, if you look at a globe or a map of the world, Antarctica is always this bit of white that's right at the bottom of the picture, isn't it? And it looks sort of flat and weird and not very big. But actually, if you get a globe and you turn it upside down, you see this. It's a land, it's a place. Okay, and that's what it looks like. And you see that red dotted line? That's where Robert went on his exploration from the sea all the way to the South Pole, everyone. So if you wondered how big Antarctica is, that is America put on top of Antarctica. So Antarctica is about twice the size of America, which is amazing. You wouldn't believe it, would you? But it is such a big land. So what he was doing was exploring a long way. But how did he do it? This is how he did it. There was 3 of them, and they had skis and poles, and they had all of their food and equipment on sledges, and they pulled it all the way from the sea to the South Pole. Now you think, well, that doesn't look too bad. That looks quite flat, really, doesn't it? The thing was, they had to climb up big hills, some mountains. They had to go through these things called crevasses, and some of you may know them. They're where the ice suddenly disappears into deep holes. They seem ever-ending, and if you fell in one, well, you wouldn't be coming back out again. So they agreed that if anyone hurt themselves badly, they'd put them in the tent and they'd have to leave them and then probably try and get them rescued later. But it was really dangerous. So when they got through these crevasses and they got up these hills and mountains, they got onto the plateau on the way to the South Pole. But that was only a few hundred miles. A few hundred miles? That took them ages. And they were ever so tired, but they made it. They made it to the South Pole, 1986. Now, you may not know this, but at the South Pole, there's actually an American Army base. So when the Americans saw them there, they said, well done, and walking to the South Pole. And Robert and his friends were really pleased. But they said, we've got some bad news for you. What? What's happened? That's a picture of Robert's ship. Robert's ship is no longer floating in the sea next to Antarctica. It got trapped in ice. It got trapped in ice, and the ice squeezed it and squeezed it and squeezed it until it popped and it cracked like an egg. And all those people on the right managed to escape and get all the stuff off they wanted to, but the boat sank. There you go. His boat sank. He couldn't get back to it, and he lost millions. He lost a lot of money. So he was happy of what he'd achieved, but he was sad because of what had happened to his boat and the money he owed to people. So what do you do? Well, you go back and see your mum. So there you go. This is what he looked like at the end of his trip to the South Pole. And he went off to his mum. He said, Mum, did you see what I did? Did you see? And his mum didn't say well done straight away. She looked at him and said, Robert, what have you done to your eyes? He said, I don't know. What do you mean? My eyes? What do you mean? They've changed colour. See, Robert's eyes had been blue. But by the time he got back from his exploration, they were sort of a grey colour. And you see, this thing had happened. He didn't know it, but scientists had discovered that over the years, humans have been using these sort of gas, and you may know sort of sprays and things that your parents use, maybe to clean or body odorant, some things like that. Well, back in the 80s, that's 30, 40 years ago, there used to be this gas in them. And we didn't know at the time, but it was dangerous to our atmosphere. And the atmosphere is all that air that goes around our planet. And also the gas that's used in fridges and freezers used that same gas. And when they got broken up, that gas also escaped and ended up in our atmosphere. And it ended up being quite dangerous. And it started to attack this gas called ozone that goes around all of our planet. And it protects us from the dangerous rays of the sun. They stop those dangerous sun rays damaging plants and our skin and other animals' skin. And a hole was appearing in our atmosphere above Antarctica. There you go. There's a picture of it. That's the ozone hole, they called it. The thing is, this is quite a good news story because the countries of the world got together. The scientists told them what was happening, and they realized that humans were causing this, and we could do something about it. We could stop using this dangerous gas. And in 1990, we agreed to stop using it. And do you know what happened? That hole, that ozone hole, started closing up, and it's got better and better over the years. And that means that the danger to us and animals and plants is less likely to happen. So we can work together and actually work together and make a change for the better of our planet. So isn't that a great news story? So Robert, let's get back to him. So he owes a lot of money. So what do you do if you're an explorer and you owe a lot of money? Well, you go on another expedition, don't you? So he had this idea of taking a team of people from all around the planet of different nations and walk to the North Pole this time. Sounds easy, doesn't it? But the North Pole, some of you may not know this, but the North Pole is not a land. It's in the middle of the sea. So Greenland's quite nearby, and Canada and Russia, but there's actually no land there. So what is there? Well, there's loads of sea ice, really thick sea ice. So we thought it's flat, probably, and they've just got to walk across the sea ice from, say, Canada. I think that's where they went from. And they'll do it soon, a few weeks. Here's them walking through that flat ice. Doesn't look very flat, does it? Yeah, that's because 2 months earlier than normal, the ice started breaking up. And suddenly the sea started appearing in between the ice, and they had to get across those big gaps. And it's so dangerous. And I read the story about this because he sold a book, and it's amazing. If there wasn't for a Russian scientist who knew the North Pole really well, they wouldn't have made it, because he found ways of getting over the ice and when to wait for the ice to come back together again, and when to sort of take a risk and jump over a meter gap. And it was an amazing story, but they made it. They made it to the North Pole. But again, something happened that made Robert worry about the planet. So there was that ozone hole we talked about that we sort of fixed largely. And then there was the ice breaking up at the North Pole. So it must be getting warmer for that to happen. So we got a little bit worried about that. And he actually decided to do something about it. And he goes around talking to important people about how problems that we create as humans are actually damaging our planet. And we should do something to stop that. So Robert is famous. Robert is famous for having the longest walk without any help ever made on Earth. That's 900 miles. But he's also the first person to walk to both the North and South Poles. So that's a pretty famous thing to do. Well, he's an explorer. So what next? I want to talk to you about air pollution next, because it's linked to what we just talked about, the ozone story, for instance. So you may walk to school, and when I walk my little boy to school, he hates the smell of the cars that go past, the diesel and the petrol cars. You can see in the bottom right there, you see a car with all that horrible gas coming out. And that's pollution. And you might know factories that you see that have this pollution coming out here in the top left. Now, all that pollution actually damages the atmosphere, that air that goes around our planet. And some of you may have heard the most damaging gas, or one of them, carbon dioxide. Now, we breathe out carbon dioxide, but we do all these other things as well. So we have cars, we have factories, we make electricity, we make heat, and all of these things use fossil fuel and actually damages our atmosphere. Now, if you want to know what air pollution can really do, here's a picture of a famous place in India. Now, on the left is smog in the air. That's pollution clouding the air. And that happens on quite a few days in the year. On the right is when it's clear, because it was COVID and there was a shutdown of the factories and no one was on the roads creating pollution with their cars. Look at the difference. So with that pollution on the left, people are having their health damaged, and thousands of people in this country alone have their health damaged by the pollution we put into the air. But if you can imagine, that's happening in all the countries in our world. So that's affecting millions of people. Some of you may have asthma. Now, pollution like that will actually really hurt your health. So it's up to all of us to try and do something about that and make sure we actually get rid of pollution. So this other thing we talked about was how carbon dioxide goes in the air. Now, you may not know, but actually a bit of carbon dioxide in the air is good, because this is how it works. The sun is in the top left there, and it's got this lovely sunny rays come out. Now, some of them in the top left, top bit, they bounce off our atmosphere. They bounce off our air and go back into space. Some of it, the middle bit, actually comes through our atmosphere and hits our planet and warms it up. And we need that heat, don't we? So some of it bounces back out to space from our planet, so we lose that heat, but some of it bounces off our atmosphere, this carbon dioxide, and bounces back onto the Earth and keeps it warm enough for us as humans to live, for animals to live, for insects to live, for plants to grow. So a bit of warmth, it's like a greenhouse, you might say. A little bit of warmth on our planet is good, because if we didn't have it, we'd be a big snowball. There'd be no life. The problem is we're creating so much carbon dioxide now as humans that it's warming up more and more. And we may be talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 degrees. But just that small temperature difference makes a big difference to our planet. We get bigger hurricanes, we get more forest fires. The sea gets more acidic and damages the actual animals that live in there. So quite a few bad things start to happen. The sea level rises because ice melts. And, it's starting to damage our health as well. So there's lots of things that are bad about having too much gas or carbon dioxide in the air. Now, I want you to hold up your hands like this. I hope you can see me, but try and make like a 2 or 3 centimeter cube square with your hand. Now, imagine that's an ice cube. Now, you put that onto your palm. Put the ice cube on your palm, okay? Now, that's one ice cube. Can you imagine now if you put 1,360,000 ice cubes on top of each other on your hand? Now, that's a big number, isn't it? Now, you need something to compare that number to. That would be the equivalent of stacking up ice cubes that were 4 times the height of Mount Everest, which is the highest mountain on our planet. Now, can you imagine you were holding all of those ice cubes in your hand? And you'd be really strong if you did. Now, can you imagine everybody in your class or your assembly hall right now doing the same? Now imagine everybody in your school doing that. Now imagine everybody in your city doing that. Everyone in the United Kingdom doing that. Everyone on our planet holding that many ice cubes. It's a lot, isn't it? Well, that's how much ice we lose from Antarctica every year. Every year. And that's because our planet is warming. And if that ice melts off Antarctica, if the ice melts off Greenland and off our mountains, the sea level will rise. And half of our cities on our planet are near the sea, and they'll start getting into trouble because they'll start flooding. Some of them already are, like Venice. So what can you do about this? Because we can all do something. That's the good news. And we can make everybody's lives better. So I work with lots of schools and lots of students, just like you, about what you can do. Now, here we go. You could switch off lights. It's simple, isn't it? Here's some guys going around checking if in classrooms people are switching off lights if they don't need them. Sometimes you need them, of course you do. But when you don't, are you able to ask your teacher and say, can we put the lights off now? Hopefully you can. So that's something you can do. And then you can do it at home as well and teach your parents, because sometimes they need teaching. You can teach them how they can just put lights off. So when nobody's in a room, lights off. You can switch off the computers or the iPad or the phone you're using if you're not using it. So if you've come out of your IT room, if you've got one of those, make sure all the computers are off, switch them off, shut them down. You could form your own green club. You might have one already. You might call it the Eco Club or something, but you can do magical things because this club can work with everybody in the school and work out great ideas that you want to do. And that can be from recycling to walking to school to making sure all the lights and computers are switched off. And you could be reading the electricity and gas meters and finding out whether you're saving energy. So that's what you could be doing. You might have an award like this lovely penguin who's had a lot of love, as you can tell. So at the end of the week, in your celebration assembly, you could have the best class at keeping the lights off and computers off. So the most eco class. Maybe you could check on the room temperature. Can you see what that girl's looking at? It's like a little temperature chart. So if you have one of those in your room, you could find out if it's getting too warm. So knowing when to put the heating off, so you could turn off the heating. Or if it gets too cold, you could make sure the heating comes back on again. So you can be the eyes and ears so that it's not just up to the adults in the school. So maybe you leave doors open in your school. How many, come on, hands up, how many people leave doors open when they go outside? I thought so. Well, there's these great ideas. So this little boy here, you can see him pushing through like these plastic curtains. And these plastic curtains, they flap together to stop the warm air getting out of school and the cold air coming in. Okay, so it's just something really simple. You hook them on the top of the door, as you can see. and they save loads of energy. So they're great for foundation and places like that, where you have the doors open so that you have that free flow from the toilets to playing outside or doing lessons outside. Really great ideas. So have a think about that. But what about James? James was right at the start of this story, and we haven't mentioned him since, have we? So let's find out what he did. So we said that he was actually going to go on this trip to Antarctica. So how did he get there? So he started off from Nottingham, because that's where he lives. And you might see there from the very top, he took a trip down to Madrid. Now that's in Spain. Then he took a trip from Spain all the way to Argentina, to their capital city, Buenos Aires. And then he had to take another trip from there to a place called Ushuaia. Now that's the most southerly city on our planet. It's actually in Chile. Can you see Antarctica at the bottom there? That's actually that flat view of Antarctica. And as we've already found out, it doesn't really look like that. But that's what it looks like on a flat map. So what did he do next? He actually took a ship from Ushuaia, and you can see the dotted line, and that ship went through the most dangerous part sea on our planet, Drake's Passage. And there were big winds, big waves, and lots of people weren't very well on the ship, but they made it to Antarctica. Now, it looks a bit green there, but actually most of it is white. You can see some rocks and some mountains, but it's pretty much white because it's cold most of the time. -40 type cold. That is cold. So they got the ship and they got off at places, and they learned all about climate change, which is all this greenhouse gas things we've been talking about, and carbon dioxide. They found out what they could do about it, and they learned about Antarctica, and he made it. He made it, everyone. That's James on the left, and that's Robert on the right, the explorer, and that's us in the middle. And isn't it beautiful? That's Antarctica in the background. That's the water, the sea that comes in on the inlet to these lovely mountains. And James isn't a great photographer, but look, even he can't mess up a picture in Antarctica. So that's them on the boats, and you can see the ship in the background there and by that mountain. And what did they see there? Because they wanted to understand why Antarctica was such an important place to look after. Well, there's this lovely picture of a whale. Now, the whales came right up to them. They're innocent things that are really, they like to investigate other animals, and they came right up to the humans in the boats. And they're able to touch them and appreciate what wonderful beasts they are. And here's James, because do you know what? He's a lucky boy. Not only did he go to Antarctica once, but he went the following year and the year after that. But this time he was a teacher. So he was helping teach all the other people that are on this expedition about climate change and the climate emergency. He taught them about Antarctica and what goes on there, and how we don't actually dig up oil there, we don't dig up gas or coal, we leave it alone. And he was explaining why we should continue to leave it alone. So here's James teaching his class. Now, maybe your classes don't quite look like that. And he's very lucky, isn't he, being able to teach in Antarctica. And that's the people that came on the trip with him. But hang on. Who are these guys? They're photobombing him. Look at that. They're the penguins. Yeah, Gen 2 penguins started coming down and having a look at what he was doing. And they are nosy little things. Look at them. They're in his bag. They want to drink his water. And the final thing you want to know about penguins, everyone, especially Gen 2 penguins, they really stink. So if ever you meet one, yeah, you might want a nose peg for them, because they really smell of fish, because they eat a lot of that. So James had a really good experience, and he learned a lot. And he goes around with me telling guys just like you about why you should look after the planet, and how we should look after the climate of our planet, and how we should try and do things that make it a better place for everybody to live, and not just humans. We're talking about animals and plants and trees, everything. And we can do it together. And I think in the next 50 years, as you grow up, you're going to see this place get better and better. And you're going to be a big part of that. You're going to be changing things by the way you behave, but by the decisions you make, because you're going to be the people in charge soon. Yeah, not us, you guys. And you're going to make great decisions, which actually creates a better planet without air pollution. You're going to be driving electric cars. You're going to be having heating systems that might be electric or hydrogen. And you're going to have wonderful jobs in a better world. I'm sure of it. So that's the end of my little presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. Lots of pictures there. lots of thoughts and ideas for you to take back into your classroom and talk to the adults in your school. So I'm going to flip back now to me so that I can just give you a quick wave, say, I hope you enjoyed it, and maybe speak to you another time. Ta-ra, everyone.